Now it's a time to open up this much-awaited conclave. So namaskar and a very, very vibrant good morning to everybody present out here and also virtually across different regions and different boundaries. So this is me, Shefali Saxena, warmly welcomes you on behalf of India Convention Promotion Bureau, and we are all here together to make this conclave very memorable, and with pride and conviction, we can declare that we are open to save events, So, India Convention Promotion Bureau, sponsored by Ministry of Tourism, Government of India, is the country's apex body whose regular mission is to propagate India's ability to hold conventions and conferences of all shapes and sizes. ICPB is a joint effort between the private and public sectors. Presently, ICPB is only travel industry body that is truly proud of participation from the entire meetings, incentives, conferences and exhibitions, that is the MICE industry, with members from central and state governments, hotels, airlines, tour operators, travel agents, exhibition suppliers, professional conference organizers, event managers, educational institutions, and many more. ICPB is chaired by Joint Secretary, Ministry of Tourism, Government of India. The management and operations are managed by the governing body with members from the different segments of the MICE industry. And today, of course, you might see that a lot of seats are vacant, but we have people joining from virtually, and it's a hybrid event. So, of course, it's a blend of physical and virtual event. So there are so many people, so many participants are already there with us. And on that note, I would like to begin this much-awaited conclave. And as an independent woman, it's my pride, it's my privilege, and it's my pleasure to introduce the panel discussion number 4. This is the second day, and we had a very, very successful culmination of the conclave yesterday, the day 1. And now it's a panel discussion 4 with the topic Gender Equality and Sustainability in MICE Industry. So, as a woman, it's a very, it's a very empowering topic, and I would really like to hear out and witness this. It's my privilege, and none other than our beloved Madhu Dubey ji, the Executive Director, ICPB, will moderate this session. Madhu ji is currently the Executive Director at India Convention Promotion Bureau, responsible for the smooth and efficient functioning of the Bureau. She earlier served in Indian Tourism Development, Tourism, and the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India in various capacities. Her last assignment in the Ministry of Tourism was as Regional Director, Australasia. She has widely traveled in India and overseas in her role as government official, representing India at various forums and trade shows. Let's put our hands together as I take this opportunity to invite Mrs. Madhu Dubey.
I'm here. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, ma'am. All yours.
So very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, present in the hall, joining us virtually, my panelists on the dais, my panelists on screen, a very warm welcome to the 13th Conventions India Conclave and to this session on gender equality and sustainability. No doubt it's a subject that we all have had opinion on all along, but I wish this session at the end will actually make you a strong advocate of the subject. And I have to mention that there is a large number of students across the various institutes and universities who have joined us. I hope they're with us now. And they will also be able to take some, before we introduce our panelists, I'll just give an overview of the subject. Gender equality and sustainability is not just a concern of half the population on this planet. It is a human right, a concern of all of us. As no society can develop socially, economically, politically if half the population is marginalized. Gender equality is intrinsically linked to sustainable development and is vital to the development and realization of human rights for all. While gender bias is not a problem we can ignore, even in a pandemic when we feel there are other pressing issues, but rather it is an issue that is even more relevant in this scenario. More women have lost jobs. More women are facing the brunt of this crisis, both in their professional and personal lives. With children at home, 24/7, schools closed for months, women have an extremely difficult time looking after the children, their families, their seniors in the house, looking to their daily needs, health care of all, which makes us all wonder, do these women have the support they need? Do these women need more to keep them going? Their multitasking, their abilities to adapt, compassion, sensitivity, aren't we stretching it a bit too far? Apart from the pandemic, even otherwise, women strive to pursue a balanced family and a professional life. I think this is the reality we all know, we all see around us, not only as women, but even the male members of the family see their wives, daughters, sisters going through this testing time all along, and I'm sure we have the support of our men colleagues in office, in our neighborhood, in our houses, in our families. Well, this was just an overview of what we're going to be discussing today. And I'm delighted to introduce you to all women panel I have, the leaders of the industry who will all put forth their views before you and share their perceptions, their perspectives in how each one of them in their leadership role would like this discussion to be taken to a point where we do not leave it as a discussion, where we do not just spend this hour talking of the issue, solutions, if any, but a concrete action. How do we want this issue to be taken to a point which would be of some benefit to the female gender? Well, number one, I would like to start my introduction of the panelists. Mrs. Meenakshi Sharma, Director General Tourism, is with us through the digital platform. She's a 1988 batch officer of Indian Audit and Account Service. She currently is the Director General Tourism in the Ministry of Tourism and has previously served as Additional Director General Tourism. She has served in various capacities in the Government of India, Ministry of Youth Affairs, Sports, and Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances. Also joined us live, Ms. Lalita Kantham Rai. She has been in the hospitality industry since 1980, based in Chennai, currently partner in Marudeshwara Enterprises. She is a professional conference organizer, organizing national and international conferences. Rajni, there we have Rajni right on the top. Rajni is the Director of Sales and Marketing of the Mahatma Mandir Convention Exhibition Center. In her career span of 20 years, Rajni has worked with various organizations like Leela, ITC, Accor, Marriott, and undertaken various F&B operations and sales marketing assignments. She was the pre-opening director of associations for HICC, Novotel Hyderabad, and instrumental in establishing Hyderabad as a MICE destination on the global map. She's worked with KW Conferences, a leading PCO in the industry, and expanded her skills in the meeting industry. Dimple Perry, so she is online. Meetings industry professional with more than 20 years of experience in sales, research, business leads generation. She has worked with HICC and Leela Group of Hotels and as a market research consultant for 10 years with Hyderabad International Convention Center and KW Conferences. Now I come to my panelists on the dais with me. Nidhi in the bright red. Nidhi is with an experience of 17 years at senior positions across education, skill development, and exhibition sector. She specializes in strategic planning and management, business development, government relations, and international alliance management. Poonam Singh, there. We have Poonam. She has spent 3 decades in the tourism and hospitality industry, working in the airlines, travel, tourism, hospitality, events, weddings, film representations, and skilling verticals. Poonam also curates industry and other events on turnkey basis, ensuring their smooth delivery end to end. Difficult task. She has handled multiple events for tourism boards of London, Britain, Scotland, Korea, Germany, and Dubai, business events in Turkey, Singapore, amongst others. Rakhi is the Executive Director, All India Radio Ophthalmological Society. She has 15 years of experience in eye healthcare operations and strategic consulting. In her current role, she leads the policy and advocacy efforts pertaining to the Indian Ophthalmic Fraternity, along with the educational and training initiatives of the All India Ophthalmological Society. She has advised board and management of various institutes in Asia and Africa on strategy, operations, supply chains, human resources, and advocacy regarding human corneal transplantation. She's also associated with the Eye Bank Association of India as a strategic advisor. You all know the lovely panel I have and the interesting session that we are going to be having with such a distinguished panel representing all the different segments. I think we would like to start with a question. I think the first question we would like to put to Mrs. Meenakshi Sharma from the government. Ma'am, would like to just seek your views on, we all understand that tourism development theoretically contributes to gender equality and women's empowerment, but would you agree substantive reframing of policies is required to maximize this potential? How can government prioritize action on gender parity?
Good morning. I think question which has been put by Madhu is very relevant one. But before, am I audible? Okay. First, let me thank you. Thank you ICBB for inviting me on such an important subject. And I'm sorry I'm not there physically, which I could have been, but I'm traveling after 9 months and I just couldn't resist that. This non-resistance is also a message to the industry we all belong to, because that's where the demand comes. That's where the, the need to meet together, need to be out is there. So first thing is about ICBP today. When I see this subject, is something which needs to be addressed, and I think it needs to be addressed directly. As you just mentioned, that it is presumed that the tourism would automatically helps the gender equality. But what do I see, and what do I see from the government? I like to share my frank views on the thing. I've been in this, I've been a tourist all my life, by passion. I think the kind of travel I have always been doing. But it is only my fifth year in tourism in a professional way compared to, I think, everybody else who is in this audience may be having more than mine. But my first impression of once on the dais, I was standing with the industry leaders, and I was the only lady there. And I was a lady there only by my designation because I belong to a setup where I just came like that. No, and I'm talking of organization like I won't like to name them, but the most of the tourism industry at the highest leadership role, there was an absence of women. It's not about that whether we are heading the organization. It's about what kind of value addition we are making and how well it is being recognized. There is no doubt about that the um, um, women contribute more than 50% as far as the travel is concerned. Whether we talk about providing the inputs. Now, when we talk of tourism and when we are talking of MICE or exhibition or anything, what are we really showing off? But do that value get recognized at the top of the line? The problem is there. If we start looking at the contribution of the women in numbers, we realize that a large number is contributing at the lower rung or being paid the least. Look at the house, like I'm just digressing a little. Look at the homestays. Most of the work which is done by the homestays might be done by a lot of women. But when it comes to the profit sharing, when it comes to the taking the credit for it, how much it comes to the women. So that's, I think, that is a challenge we must recognize. We must see how that can be changed. The one immediate way other than the policy, like for example, again completely different subject. Only 30 years back, most of the property in this country used to be in a single name, and that always would be a man, or it will be in a HUF where again there will be only men. The government of India and the certain reforms, and starting from one of the state governments, that they say the property tax would be a little lower if it is in the name of the women. So when it was a combined thing, it automatically became, and the women get empowered by that. It might take us some time, but the right kind of thought process, it can help in that. For example, when we talk of the corporate rules, now it is compulsory to at least have one women director. A lot of people will say, oh, that is only for just just to put a name there. Oh, that's only for the stamping the thing. But not true, because women are capable. It is just that the glass ceiling is real. Let's not fool ourselves that by simply by merit or simply by doing better or doing more than the double than the men, we are able to do away with the glass ceiling. These, the first thing is we need certain policy push by saying that the women are needed. We have been in government of India, have been trying. I think some of the people who have been meeting me would get to see that I would say, where is the women? Because see, the voice, women's voice is not the 50% voice. I would say it is more than 75% voice. Why do I say so? I say so because 50% is obviously the gender. 25% are the voice of the things which are not said by the men, even if they know. Because I think we all know of the management theory of X and Y, right? We all talk about the type A and type B. We all talk about that. Are they really the concepts? No, they are the realities. We talk about IQ versus EQ, whether the it is only the it is only the going for the bottom line is important, or it's going for the involvement of an empathy with the community development, having a little less profit but more sustainable, having the right ethos, even if we may lose in the short run. I think these are the certain things which I think women bring it to the table for the very simple reason. Even today, we are not pushed by simply the profits, because I think this is all psychological. It's not but anything about men and women. Even today, we sometimes will think, okay, the men at least are taught to think that way, that it is their responsibility to provide for. Women start with the thought, good if I do it, and it's okay if I don't do 100%. So there is a little thought process which is different, and which you will see people who are not really, what we say is, are driven enough. So one thing is about right policy, other thing is about the voicing, the presence. It is important to have the presence of women as leaders, as the managers, because we see in the ladder of tourism there is a very large number of contribution by the women at the lower level and at the middle level, but higher level this is not as much as we would like to see. So that's my first thing. Another thing is about sustainability. Somehow, if you see, I mean, you must be seeing all over the place when we talk about the, the whether it's a micro loan or it's a sustainable initiative. What is the percentage of women versus men? Again, women are in much larger numbers. So there is something, the burden of sustainability, the responsibility of such sustainability, and the pride of sustainability comes with the women leaders. So I think that is again something which is very, very crucial. The next third thing which I want to share is that somehow we lose the battle when we are having too much expectation from ourselves. The problem with women is that they don't want to be women. We want to be the super women. We want to be best in all the fields we work. We want to be the best in the industry we are leading. We want to be the best mothers, best wives, best friends. Now, all that is good as objective. But how? Where is the support system which provides for it all? Can we have that kind of a sustainable thing? Most of the R&D, most of the even social science R&D goes towards a majority view. Until now, the majority view has been a non-women view. So I think I would expect, we have such a galaxy of people who have been working in this area, to tell us what are the things if you would like to bring in the organizational structure, or what can we do to bring that on. I think these are the some core thoughts which I have for today's this thing. I would be very happy, and I'll be listening even if I may not be visible to you all through your conversation. And I hope we carry something further from this. I hope Madhu have answered your question. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Other aspects also that you have covered. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and your perspectives. Thank you very much, ma'am. Now, as we know, the problem is more serious than what we really casually discuss. And we find that a lot of times to evaluate the problem, to understand where to start and where to take it forward, you need statistics, you need data, which sadly is not available in the measure we should have to do any meaningful study, research, to do something for the government to take action. You do need a good base of statistics, which unfortunately isn't available with us to the degree it should be. Now to Dimple. Yes, we have Dimple here. Dimple,
Yes,
let me have your
yes,
thoughts on this.
Madhuji.
Would you have any statistics on the Indian mice industry relating to gender equality? Indian or could even be on the global scenario, because I know we don't have really enough information on this.
Yeah. Thank you, Madhuji, and wishing everyone a warm good morning. As most of you know, I'm a researcher, and today I would like to share some couple of reports which I've studied on this subject. And one of this is by the World Economic Forum. It's a report which is called the Global Gender Gap Report 2020. So it's essentially a most updated report, which has been made by a study of around 153 countries. And this study was undertaken essentially on 4 parameters, one being economic participation and opportunities given to women. One is on health and survival, and education and attainment, and political empowerment of women. So of these 4 factors, it's been studied on a scale of the best gender parity being achieving a goal of 0 for all these countries. And as you all would know by now, that none of the countries today have met this index. And as far as India goes, it is a bit sad that India has been rated 112th amongst these 153 countries, which is really a very alarming. And though we have been attaining, we have been doing progress over all these years, but the progress has been very slow. And another highlight here that I would like to make is essentially India has been lacking on one important parameter, which is the economic participation and opportunities given to women. So this is one factor which really brings the country down as far as women equality is concerned. So this empowerment essentially would lead to more, should essentially lead to more giving more opportunities to women in leadership roles in the political scenario and in every field. As far as India, also one other alarming fact is even in our own region, which is the South Asian region, India ranks 4th, with countries like Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka being ahead of us. So this in itself is again not a very favorable fact for India, which otherwise is a leader in our own region. So I think this gives enough thought to all of us that we need to take steps to really move forward in this direction. There is, here I would like to quote another study which was undertaken by a New York-based events technology solutions company called Bizabo. They had undertaken a study of global international events. They had undertaken the study of around 5,000 large-scale global events, which spanned across 23 countries and was undertaken over a period of 5 years. Now, just one factor from this report that I would like to bring forward today is a factor that a study on the speaker profiles of all these large-scale important industry events. Now, it is alarming to know that the male speaker ratio in these large-scale events has been 70%, and for women, it's just been 30%. So which in itself shows that the women should be given more voice, should be given more empowerment, and should be, across the board, be given more opportunities and more empowerment to come out there and be the voice. So these are the things that I would like to bring to your notice today. And one fact, as Madhuji already mentioned, that we don't have any kind of study which has been undertaken in the past on this very important topic. And would urge Madhuji and Meenakshi ji to take this under notice and see if we can do something in the near future, and start collecting data and putting these things together so that we can work towards enabling women in MICE to come forward and to be mentored and be given opportunities, equal opportunities, and to take this journey forward. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dimple. Thank you for emphasizing on the need for data, and not only the need, but also the path that we have to take forward to get this data, at least to start building this data. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Nidhi is here with me. Nidhi, this is a question for you, and probably I'll put it to the others too. Where do you think we stand today with the glass ceiling for women in the world of mice? Where do you think we stand?
Good morning. First of all, thank you, Madhuji, for bringing up this very interesting topic. So we keep discussing about gender parity, but forums like this bring more value to the discussion, because this is where we need to start and take it forward towards action at a later stage. So coming to your question, I think in general, if we talk about gender parity, so Dimple has shared very relevant data with us. I would just like to add some more. In terms of the gender parity at the overall level in India, so women contribute almost 25% of the workforce. So this is as per the study done by McKinsey in 2018. So this brings out although that's 25% of the workforce, but the kind of economic contribution is around 17%. But there is very interesting point here that given that there are more women in the workforce, more women are added to the workforce in India, we can add up to USD 770 billion to the GDP of the country by 2025. So which shows the kind of potential that is still untapped. Now coming to the world of mice, so I would say, as per some studies, there are more women in the meetings and conventions sector, but if we talk about exhibition sector, there are women, and I mean not as many. So in US, it states that there are almost 70% women in the meetings and conventions, area. As we know, we don't have the relevant data for India. And in exhibition space, we have women, but more at the bottom of the pyramid. So the numbers keep shrinking as we move up the corporate ladder. So this is the important, point which we need to focus on. So there are many things that are, that can be attributed as the causes, so which can be further deliberated upon, pay equity, opportunities, lack of opportunities, and then the policies at the organization levels in terms of gender diversity and equal opportunities. So all these, are the important factors that need to be considered and taken for action. So this is what I would like to highlight here. I would also like to share another study done by International Association of Exhibitions and Events, which states that in terms of the managerial roles, so women, I'm talking about the pay equality, so women are earning almost 25% lesser as compared to their male counterparts. And if we go to the C-level jobs, it's the difference is alarming, which is almost 67% lesser as compared to the male counterparts. So this is the factor we need to focus on. And besides that, I think not only on the organizational level, it has to be at the individual levels also. We as women need to come forward. We need to take up the challenging roles, and we have to mark our presence. So it is a two-way process, and definitely discussions like this can lead us to a better position. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go forward, from the exhibition component of the mice, I also want to understand, you say that women are more at the lower level. The number is more at
Lower
the
and middle levels, yeah.
Now, do you also observe that it's a short career for women at that level? Do they leave early, or do they stick on, climb up the ladder and reach these senior positions? Or do you see most of them there for a couple of years and then they decide to shift careers or maybe just decide to be homemakers?
Yeah, I think we can say that in the exhibition space, there are women at the, as I mentioned, like at the bottom of the pyramid and at the mid-level jobs. At the top level, we hardly have, a very few. But like if we see the ones who are there at the top are doing exceptionally well. If we see their organizations, they are really thriving well. So whether that be the profit and loss case, or whether that be the position, market position, or whether that be, any aspect of competitiveness. So now coming to the women, I would say like the problem is about the perception also. Exhibition industry is understood as very demanding in terms of timings, in terms of, the nature of work. But I don't think that that's the right perception. Because in today's world, which sector is not demanding? We need to, understand that. Like the women who are in the industry, I've seen them enjoying their job. So it has to be, the awareness needs to be brought in. So there are women who lack confidence, who lack, the kind of passion to come forward. They think that, okay, if I'll take the higher positions, I will have to devote and dedicate more time. I'll be, unable to balance my work and home requirements or responsibilities. So if this kind of, training, this kind of awareness workshops are conducted, the situation could be much better. Women continue with their jobs to a certain stage, but after that, like either they are not getting the promotions, and I wouldn't say that it's only the organization responsible, it is both sides. And if, otherwise they generally also end up, being homemakers. And that's an opportunity loss for the, country's economy, I would say.
Yes. Though, of course, we believe a homemaker's job is a huge, huge job.
Of course it is.
So we applaud women, even women who are homemakers.
But I think like we are able to juggle both the roles very well, so we should not limit ourselves.
Certainly, most certainly. Raki, can I take the same question for you?
Yeah. Yes, Madhuji.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, it's the same question.
Yeah, it's the same question. Where do you think we stand today with the glass ceiling for women in the world of healthcare?
Healthcare. So first of all, thank you, Madhuji, for inviting us here. And it's a great platform. And for me, it's a very different kind of experience listening about the mice industry and the experiences. And I can relate very much here with Nidhi. I'm very fortunate to be in the industry, which is healthcare, where 70% of the workforce is female. When we talk about paramedics, nursing staff, support staff, doctors, according to WHO report, it's 70%, which looks like a great figure. But when we look at the leadership roles, it's only 25% there. So the disparity is, of course, there. When we talk about healthcare, we say that women are more compassionate, they are more caring, and that's why they should go into the healthcare industry. But are we lesser in the leadership roles, that we are not offered the leadership roles? Yeah. According to a McKinsey report, it's for the global, that says that out of the 100 men promoted, 102 females are promoted in healthcare, which is a very, very positive figure. But when we say the pay gap, the women are paid 25% less than the male in healthcare industry. The questions like, so first of all, it's a very skill-based industry again. It's a professional industry where you study a lot and then come. So in the initial phases, you get the good jobs. But when you're moving ahead, then a lot of questions comes. Are you married? Are you unmarried? If you are married, are you having kids? Because all these questions and your answers will depend on what kind of salary you are getting, what kind of position you are getting. True. So we are on the same boat across all levels here. Yeah. So I am very, very fortunate again to be in a very niche field of eye health care, which has grown a lot in last 30 years. So if we look at the data, 30 years back, 92% of the ophthalmologists, the eye doctors, were male, and only 8% were females. Now, if we look at the data of 2017, it says the ratio is 60% male and 40% female. And it's going to change with year by year. And as with my experience, I'll say that it will be 60% female and 40% male very soon. It's an area where females are leaders, not only in India. AIOS, which is a national level organization in India, is headed by a female. International Council of Ophthalmology is headed by a female. Asia Pacific Academy of Ophthalmology is headed by a female. Then also, we face the gender disparity. So I was asking this question to one of the doctors, a young doctor, that she was doing her MBBS, and I said, which field you will take when you are doing your post-graduation? And she said, it depends on the family I'm married in. And this is what actually Nidhi ji is saying. It is also an individual's responsibility. If I am intelligent enough to get into a neurosciences or cardiac, I will not take it, because as a female, I am responsible to take care of my home as well as my profession. And I will say, I will become a physician, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, which don't need emergency cases. So this is an individual perception also, and we have to change that. As a female, we are very guilt conscious. If I am leaving my child at home and going for my night duty, I will be in the guilt that I am doing something wrong. People will, if I say as a doctor or as a nurse that I am getting a promotion, and the person will say, 8 out of 10 person will say, oh, your family is so supportive. What about the hard work which we have done? What about the things which we have done to get that level? No one talks about that. So as soon as we give into the society, we are same everywhere. The gender disparity is there. I'm not saying that give us an advantage because we are females, but give us the equal rights based upon the skill, the aptitude, and the attitude we have. So this gender disparity is definitely something which is everywhere, and we need to work on that for sure.
Agreed.
Thank you, Madhuji.
Thank you very much, Rakhi. And just to add to that, I also think that in the healthcare sector, particularly in the healthcare sector, there are some stereotypes that we all kind of judge doctors. If it's a gynae, yeah, she's right. If she's a pediatrician, okay, that's what you expect. But if you were looking for something to do with a cardiac surgeon, I think you may or may not decide on that doctor. Is that really the way it goes around, or
This is
it's
Madhuji,
a layman's view?
Madhuji, you are so right here. If you just send a WhatsApp to your friends right now and say you want a recommendation for a neurologist, I can guarantee 100% that 10 out of 10 recommendations will be of a male surgeon.
Yep.
And it's definitely is there.
Thank you, Rakhi, for this very frank sharing of views. And we thought that as people on the other side, we just thought of it as something that's probably not true, but hearing it from you, we have a long way to go. My next question is to Poonam. Poonam, you belong to the events industry, known to be a high-pressure zone. Events is a high-pressure zone, which we can say 1,000 times, and it's probably not enough. What is the motivation behind your events work? What keeps you going? What keeps you energized? What is that force that wants you to keep going and encouraging others?
Thank you for your question, Madhuji. First of all, Good morning, friends. It's wonderful to be here at this ICPB All Women's Initiative. So, Madhuji, while I agree that there is a glass ceiling all around for women in just about every industry, with special reference to the events industry and the weddings industry, I think what I would like to do is to begin with just a little story at the background and then take you through the journey that has started around 1989 and moved on to the present day. And that will show you where the evolution took place. So to begin with, in the 1980s, weddings and events planning was, which is no surprise, a largely male field and a prerogative. In the late 1980s, there were only two women in the weddings industry. There was a lady called Aruna Bhen who operated out of Mumbai, and her role was not so much wedding planning, but as advising the Marwari community on the rituals and the ceremonies of their children and wards. Slowly over the years, this became inclusive of the Punjabi community, and she moved from the role of an advisor to also handling decor and the creative side. In Delhi, we have a lady called Meher Sareed, who's still going strong. I don't know if some of you who are my age group remember a DJ called Sunny Sareed when we were young, but she's his wife, and she started off as ITC's events head, got into wedding planning, and of course faced the so-called glass ceiling. She worked a lot with largely men. So she worked with Rama Tent House and Poonam Florist, both male-dominated areas. And initially, she says that she did face this resistance, not only by the public, but also by ITC, when there were very fixed notions. Events karne hain, to bas aise round table decoration honi chahiye. You can't be creative. So she says, I tied up with a friend of mine who was a horticulture and Ikebana expert, and the first thing that we did little by little was to make the flower decorations much more creative. They took on ITC's signature event, which was meant for their patrons. And I remember her telling me that something as simple as making white cone baskets with white chrysanthemums and white tube roses with highlighting done strategically was appreciated so much that when ITC's patrons raved about it, ITC began to give them a free hand. So she started traveling overseas, and when she traveled overseas, she realized that the events and the weddings industry was pretty much female-oriented and female-dominated. And that, she says, was an extremely enabling, learning, and happening experience for her. She came back, and she went all out in this field. And slowly over the years, she was able to make an impact. And then we got to, let's say, the end of the 1990s, where it was not just her, but it was also the really happening Vandana Mohan of Backstage Productions, who launched the wedding design company and who is now an advisor to all of Bollywood's big fat wedding scenes. So it's Vandana and Meher who do this. And as we are speaking today, I would confidently state that almost 60 to 70% of the weddings industry is either led by women or the hard work, the creative side, the delivery mechanism is done by women. But they've had to struggle because initially what used to happen was that when they went as a wedding planner to talk to the family, you would find that the men were not comfortable talking to a woman, you know. And in a lot of instances, Vandana recalls that they used to ask her, "To phir aapka tenting service hai? You know, aap phool karte hain?" And that was that. They could not understand that she was heading her own company and she had an all-women's team. She did not have any men. So I'm going to tell you another story of when she got the leading Punjabi singer in for one of her events. And Delhi police, being Delhi police, said, sorry ji, 10:30 baje band karna hai. And there was a near riot situation. So Vandana marched in with all 6 of her women to Nizamuddin station, police station, and she demanded to see the SHO. And he looked at her and he said, आदमी कहाँ है जिससे बात करनी है? Okay, so we're talking of late 90s where the cops did not think that a woman was capable of handling something of this kind. And she says, I just told him very curtly, this is all you've got. And I'm here to get my work done. And she got her work done. So I think, and this is something I personally believe in, because in my house, Madhuji, I come from a family where my mother, who was a so-called housewife, was also an entrepreneur. So she started her own school. She did her import-export business. She went ahead and she had cooking classes. I got the best of education with my brother, the best of food, the best of clothes. I think perhaps the only place where she differentiated was maybe from the safety protocol, that she felt that I may not be that safe in the night. And I think that exists till date, right? But apart from that, I've inherited equally, perhaps even more. So I personally feel that it's the women who enable the women, right? If we are able to reach out and support, educate, empower the women in our family, the men will have no choice, right? The men are there always to support and to walk with us. And this talk of gender parity, there are certain things we do brilliantly. There are certain things men do brilliantly. It's a symbiotic relationship, especially so in the events and weddings industry. Today in the office that I work in, which is an expanded hospitality network office, we're almost 90 to 95% women, aside of the founder who is male. Everyone else is a woman. And in all the jobs or assignments I've had in the past, it's been between 50 to 80% of a feminine presence and participation. And I also feel that sometimes we do it to ourselves. Like I do it to myself. I feel I'm not that much of an ace in finances, but it's a mental block that I have got. So as long as the women get out of that mental block, and as long as they don't look upon it as just a womanly thing to do, but as a capable person performing, I think we'll be able to make many more inroads.
Very well said, Poonam. I entirely agree with you, and you've put it so forcefully that I think all of us in this hall and all of us who are listening to you today would only agree that it is the women who have to take women forward. Very well put. Thank you very much. And Lalita ji, yes, here you are. One question for you. How do you make the MICE industry a long-term career supporting workplace for women? In our discussions so far, we kind of come to a very general consensus that there are women in the industry, but they're perhaps not in the leadership roles in the number they should be. There is pay disparity. But we also find that women leave their careers. It's a short-term career. Maybe they take it up initially, and it's something that they do till the time they get married or till they have children, and then it's a different course taken by individuals. How do you support women for a long-term career in the MICE industry?
Thank you, Manjuji. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure being on this panel. So I will start with saying the only positive thing from COVID, which we all, it's a take-home message, is we've all worked from home now. Last 6 months, most people have done that. So if we can set this trend and continue on this for the future, even when we are back to office in full time, lot of ladies, lot of women contribute job, their commitment, whatever it be, the home front, family front, they will continue. If we can continue working online. I know it's very difficult in a hospitality industry to do that. But if we can complete at least 80% of our work online, taking it forward for the conclusion of the on-site event, I'm very sure we'll retain our ladies in work. This is a point which I want to throw it out to all of you there. Can we make this? Can we make a resolution? I know we will look forward to government policies. Yes, from 3 months maternity leave, we've moved to 6 months maternity leave. And there is a paternity leave, which is a very short one, I would think. But if each of us at this forum can take up, okay, I will make this difference to my organization, that I will make, I won't say bend the rules, but make them flexible. There are so many things we can do. We have flexi working hours. I know an ideal situation would be to have a creche and a nanny in your thing. It's not possible for each of us in our organization to have. But as a community, if you have 10 offices in a building, or just down the street, there are 50 offices, put together, work on these. And these are things which I personally feel we can each contribute. We can each start somewhere. This is like in Finland, apparently in 2018, the snow was being cleared, the high road area. When they flipped it around, starting road, dropping his work, finishing some errands on the way, it made a huge difference to that scenario. So this is at the governmental level, which I'm very sure there are policies, and how long these policies take to get converted to reality is, it's a process. But we should, and I can very proudly say that we Marundeshwara, we've been practicing it. When we have this maternity leave, when they come back, we give them flexi time. We have, from the time she was 8 as a student, came to us for kids. For we do. And this is, we have seniority, they have the continuity, and when they want to come back full time, there is no gap in between. This is my take on this. Madhuji, back to you.
Thank you, Lalita ji. I think we had a little audio issue, but I'm sure it could have been recorded well. Rajni, question for you. Now, we would love to hear you on this. It is often found that new entrants to the industry look up to their seniors as mentors and imbibe qualities of their mentors as they go up the ladder. And very often you find these new entrants coming up gradually, almost reflecting the mentor they were with. How do you see the mentoring as a contributing factor towards gender equality?
So, good afternoon, good morning to all of you. I hope the dinner last night was enjoyable to all those of you in the audience. We will get your share the next time. So that's that.
Yes,
however, to answer your questions, can you guys hear me loud and clear?
Yes, very clear.
All right. So, 25 years ago, I was standing at doing an outdoor catering at the Taj Bengal. because I used to study in Calcutta those days. And I saw this beautiful lady standing in a banquet hall, wearing a fabulous sari and holding a cigarette in her hand with a cigarette holder. That particular image struck one of power, struck one of, look at me, I am a person who you need to reckon with. That image stayed with me. The mentoring bit of it never happened, but the sense of awe and inspiration that I got from that particular moment stayed with me through my life. I've been lucky in my life, and I have worked with various leaders, male and female. My first leader is right on this panel, Dimple Perry. You can take a bow. So certain formats and forums that we've learned on mentorship are very, very clear. I just want to bring a few things which to the table very quickly, which I need to address in this forum. First and foremost, we need to stop discrimination, whether it be discrimination of pay, whether it be discrimination of career choices, whether it be discrimination of pure gender, or whether it be discrimination of region, regional stereotyping of certain characteristics of gender as well. So these are things we need to stop. Number two, eliminate harassment, whether it be physical, whether it be implied physical, or whether it be mental. In either form, whether it be male or female, both need to get eliminated from a workplace. Three, we need to then develop the resources which we need to start looking and nurturing for the events industry or the MICE industry to sustain in the long run. And that is where mentoring plays a pivotal role. Each of us who are members of ICPB or IEIA or the events industry or the events network, we need to, as leaders, take this pledge to ourselves to actually mentor 30% of our leadership team to be women. Why do I say 30? We say baby steps. Start mentoring your lower level and teach them to aspire to become middle. Women at the lower level grapple because nobody teaches them what is the next step. Incorporate training stroke learning sessions every week to make sure the person's ready for the role, not because she spent long hours in the particular role, but because she wants the next one and is capable for it. We all know that the woman has to work harder, but you know what? Teach her, then she will become smarter and harder. The point being, all of us who are here today virtually at some point had some mentors, but we got lucky. It wasn't a process. We as ICPB or as IEIA or as any forum of association should actually create a calendar of growth. Sustainable, small nuggets, every level. It's not just about leadership. Today's leader, tomorrow's leader is actually sitting in the audience virtual online today. That girl who's listening to me, Lalita, you, Madhuji, Meenakshi ji, or Dimple is actually thinking, who should I copy? Should it be Lalita or should it be Dimple? Should I want research or do I want to do a wedding? Give her the choice to break down your careers. Take a girl, take one of your team members and say, you will mentor the next girl who comes in. I'm not saying just girl, mentor a team, create trainer mentor program, every level. One person take one person take one. Lift, yes, you will lose some. We lose men too to other industries. But having said that, give them the power of education to actually move up to the next level, not sheer age-driven organization. Number two, I think that gender-based budgeting should be done. When I say gender-based budgeting, what I mean by that is there are certain additional costs which are required to be a gender-neutral organization. There are some things that I noted when I was making this conversation. Flexi work arrangements, which means you will have to look at ways in which, I can come in early or I can go late. However, my work, that means a little bit of HLP can go up because the work hours are increasing. You're talking about staggered work hours. You talk about work schedules which can be flexi, which means telecommuting can be done, as Lalita mentioned. It can be part-time work. Half the women force are actually in the part-time, uncounted, workforce, which, as Meenakshi ji mentioned, it's the homestay, the Airbnb. That woman is earning money for her household. The husband declares the income. You have to train these people to become better so that she at that Airbnb level can earn a little more. You train that part-time girl who comes to clean your housekeeping floors in the convention center to become a housekeeping supervisor. You have to take the time to make her want to more. And the good thing about us women, we actually like money in our pockets because we can buy our children or our husband or ourselves something nice today. It's an incremental income which I'm ready to work for. The responsibility is mine to learn. Has my leadership created the environment to do so? Therefore, schedule timing. You will also have to factor in maternity leave, paternity leave, and even I'm throwing this in the mix, period leave. I am fine with that. It is up to us to be prudent whether we want to have it. I'm not on the left of it. I'm not on the right of it. These are realities of being a woman. The gender environment that we create in mentoring should be one of your skill sets are different from a man. However, it is in no way lesser or higher than what we bring to the table. Creative, practical, yin and a yang. As Punita ji said, it is different strengths that come to the table when all of us come together. Clear thinking is what we need to get out of these women. Women actually tend to have multiple thoughts going in their heads at all times. We come across as scattered brain because I'm also thinking of my child whose PTA meeting is tomorrow. I have to make sure that the laundry comes in. I hope Big Basket comes in on time so that food comes in. These are all not superwoman. This is just reality today that we face when we think of what I'm sitting here, but the swan, the legs are moving frantically. So the system of gender neutrality will help train our men to understand that she is not just being cranky. Maybe the child is not well. Maybe her husband is also cranky at his workplace. Nobody mentions it. So these are stereotypic, typical conversations which we should eliminate at workplace, and all of us should not let it slide. These are not reprimands. It's a culture change that has to come in for gender-specific budgeting. Now, another thing which I would like to present to this table is to the people who are listening to us. In today's world, yes, Me Too is gaining place everywhere. Yes, 70% of women in the US are event managers. We are much lesser. However, there are mentors across the board and across the panel who are fantastically enabled to give you the helping hand that you need. These are the forums and formats, and all of us are available to do, if you are serious about it, to actually come back and help you to make that step, to make these decisions that you need to make. There are no right and wrong answers. If you feel you can't work beyond a 9 to 6, it's your choice. We won't lose you. You will still be a woman in the workforce. But having said that, make those decisions on a prudent basis. Don't be driven out because you were not heard. Stand up and make your voice count. Data is critical. You are a person and you need to make your agreement or disagreement very, very clear in your own mind, in the mind of your society that you are living in, and of course, to the external threats that you feel are affecting your job space. So we are all learning. So mentoring should be one-on-one. Mentoring should not be large scale, and it should be systematic. Give the person what they need to do to come up to the next level so that you can move up to the next level. So that is what I talk about, systematic leadership planning. And that's when we will see more women on top. So all of us need to do this. Thank you. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Rajni. I think it's very clear that mentoring is a very responsible role. When we mentor our juniors, we actually take on the responsibility, which is at multiple levels, and we need to take it on very seriously. Thank you very much, Rajni, for that. Well, I think we are running short on time, so before we conclude with the wrap-up statement, I think what I would quickly like to ask each one of you, all the panelists, just give me one skill each that women need to develop, which perhaps they are not so hands-on, and that little skill development will actually give them that push. Can I start with Nidhi?
I hope I'm audible. Yeah. So talking about the MICE sector and specifically the exhibition sector, the studies also show that women are good at multiple skills, multitasking, etc. What they lack is networking. So this is an important skill we need to develop because networking is very vast in itself. It may be for expanding the business, it may be for learning, and it may be also for your promotions. So you have to be very prudent also at the same time. It should not be that you are just hanging around. You have to build up relations which will help you.
Multitasking, okay. And what does Raki have to say on that? Oh, yes, I
feel they need to take care of their own finances, and it's all in the mind that we are not good with numbers, we can't invest money, we can't do mutual funds, etc.
Right.
So I think that needs to be taken care of by the female herself.
Poonam, what would you add to the list?
I think we've put most of the temperaments and required, let me say, elements forward. But I think very importantly, not just as women, in the events and weddings industry, you need to be part of the solution. Because weddings will throw up huge googlies at every step, at every stage. And you're dealing with different elements. You're part of the various families. So you've got to be very, very adept at managing temperaments, at managing stress, and at being part of the solution, not freaking out that there are so many problems.
A problem solver. Yeah. Very well. Lalita ji, what one skill do you recommend? I think there is an audio problem.
Okay. It's basically self-respect. You respect yourself, and you'll get it duly from everybody around you. And then stand up and be heard. These are my two mantras.
So be assertive and believe in yourself. Dimple, what's your take?
Yeah, my take would be, advice would be to take up every opportunity that knocks on your door, be it you are the first, for example, in my own case, I would say there have been many firsts in my career, starting with being the first bar manager at the Leela Mumbai. Then I got an opportunity to be a work from home with HICC, which I was successfully doing for the last more than 8 years. So I think every opportunity that knocks on your door, you should take it up assertively. And advice to the students and our young viewers who are there, I would like to say that for every girl, it should be important to be financially independent and be well educated and ensure that you have some amount of work experience before you plan to settle down in life. I think these are a few things which are very important because being financially independent gives a great boost to the confidence and need which could arise in the future. Thank you.
Lovely. So grab every opportunity come your way. Rajni, what do you add to this list?
I have 3 things. I'll go with First and foremost, knowledge. Sharpen your saw at every opportunity. Whatever, whoever teaches you 360 degrees, knowledge. Number two, run your own race. Don't be led by time and people to, I have to be a general manager by X time. I have to be something by X time. Make sure that you have fun while you're working in life. Work-life balance is not a statement. It should be something you imbibe. Third thing, remember to have some really critical, kick-ass women and men in your life who can tell you on your face when you are wrong. I have a squad of girlfriends and a couple of boyfriends who tell me, I'm not going to use the unparliamentary language, which I would have used off screen, but who will tell me when I'm stepping out of line, because you have to be clear, you have to be concise and very forthright when it comes to taking criticism, because that is what will make you, the blade sharper. My last point, Poonam, I apologize. I called you Punita. I am really, really sorry for that. So to you as well. Thank you so much for this panel, and I had a wonderful time. And for those of you who don't know, we six spoke very frequently to make sure that you heard that we are leaders who will teach you and not just women who got lucky in our lives. Thank you, Madhu, for this wonderful session.
Thank you very much. I think we have a fabulous discussion today, and with so much of input from our leaders that I hope all our students and our audience today with us would realize that this is a subject of great importance where we can all chip in to make this planet a better planet only when half of us grow and are able to contribute. Now, if I have Meenakshi ji, hands?
Yeah,
Can I put a question?
Yeah.
The last, I think I must have your comments on this. A message from you, please. A message do you have for the corporate sector employing women to make the workplace safe, conducive to their professional growth, and sensitive to the needs of meeting their family responsibilities? In the government, we have certain regulations, but I think a message from you to the corporate sector on this line would, I think, give a very positive message to them.
So whatever I've been talked today, and I have listened to it all through, I think if that all can be done, we are pretty much on our way. So what did we see today is that let the women be mentored, make it a safe place, let them challenge their boundaries, let consider their very different skill set, which contributes equally, if not more, and make it a safe place for them by simply right leadership, right environment. And there's no job which they can't do. So I think if that message which we discussed with all the great thought which has come together, I think we are very much done. I don't think we need anything further. Yeah. So that's what I like to summarize. Right. Yeah. Thank you very much for inviting today. Yeah.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. And thank you to all my panelists here. It was lovely having you. And with this, as an action call, ma'am, we would all be putting together a paper for you, Dimple helping us with the data.
Sure,
and I do hope that in the coming years, we'll be better placed when we discuss this subject on data. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you very much.
Achieve something out of it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow,
Thank you.
What a mind-blowing session. Are you all with me? Can we hear a huge round of applause for such confident women? And I am feeling truly enlightened and truly encouraged. Thank you for being such a guideline and such a great advisor. I've taken back so many points, whether it is, Nidhi ji saying about networking, or Poonam talking about adaptability, or Lalita ji saying about self-respect. And of course, Rajni was full of knowledge and so much of, she has seen from the different fields. And what an insight when I really abide with this point that we must have true friends in our life, men and women both, to set us right, to set us on the correct path. And of course, Dimple, I completely buy your thought that girls should be independent and experienced before getting married and settled. Thank you, each one of you, for contributing in such a brilliant way, such a brilliant way. Thank you so much, so much.